Hello to all my Facebook family and friends. Welcome to another special edition of Parks Investigative Live with my special guest, none other than Meridian, Mississippi Mayoral candidate, Mr. Weston Lindemann. Welcome to the program again, sir.
Good to be back. Thanks for having me on again right before the election here.
Absolutely. I was just tuning in to your WTOK's live screen that they was airing moments ago. I really appreciate you running from one place to another to join the live stream. We were very excited to have you on. We got some really good questions for you, and even some rebuttal from last night from our other mayor candidate guest that
great.
we'll like to get it. You was called out, so I got to be fair and just kind of give you a heads up. So again, welcome to the program, Mr. Lindemann. Guys, if you are tuning in, please go ahead and share this live. You don't want to miss what Mr. Lindemann has to say. We're less than a week away from the election for the city of Meridian. The municipal elections were actually for the entire state, but most importantly, the city of Meridian. Next Tuesday night, prayerfully around this time next Tuesday, we will hopefully be learning who will lead the city of Meridian for the next 4 years. And Mr. Lindemann, I know you're excited about this upcoming June 8th when the polls open. All right. Well, look, guys, before we get started, I'm just going to do a quick prayer, and then we'll get right into tonight's program. So if you would bow your heads, Heavenly Father, we thank you for allowing us to be on this program tonight. We ask that you put the wings on the word, add movement in the message, and power in the proclamation. We ask these things to be done in your son, Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
All right, Mr. Lindemann, again, welcome back to Parks Investigative Live. I'm drinking coffee in my Investigative Live cup, so pay me no
late for coffee.
Yeah, I know, but I worked today and I had to referee some games, so me yelling, blowing that whistle, I need something to kind of smooth that throat area.
Going with the peppermint tea myself. So
there you go. All right, Mr. Lindemann. For those who didn't get the opportunity to see you on the WTOK live stream moments ago, Tom Williams kind of stole some of my questions I wanted to ask, but with all fairness, it's some of the same questions that we talked about in the previous shows, and I'm sure some of the same questions that you've been asked throughout this campaign. But again, remind the viewers why you want to become mayor of the city of Meridian.
Well, 4 years ago, I became the city council person representing Ward 5, and I played largely an oversight role in trying to shine light on some of the issues that were going on at City Hall, sometimes behind closed doors, sometimes with bad management decisions that were being made or the way that the city's finances were being handled. And a lot of that resulted in positive changes, whether it was advancing the conversation so that we're actually now discussing the issues and not ignoring them like we were previously, or doing real things like improving our payroll processes to modernize our payroll system to an electronic system rather than paper time cards where people had previously been marking down way too many hours. And that's why we had indictments of 4 individuals who worked for the city of Meridian who had been taking advantage of that. And so it's been things like that, improving our finances from my oversight position, making sure that we keep a watchful eye on the way money is being spent down at City Hall. And that's resulted in an increase in our cash reserves from $1.2 million when I first came into office to over $8 million today. So I'm proud of the work that I've done as a city council person. But last August, when I presented a budget that would pave streets every year, spending $5.5 million out of the city's budget without raising taxes or cutting any existing services, the city council rejected that in favor of borrowing more money than they could actually spend in a year's time. And now here we are almost a year later and they've yet to spend that money. Well, following that vote, I realized, looks like I've got to run for mayor. And I've been out campaigning ever since, talking to over 2,000 voters door to door, really working the social media angle so that I can reach large audiences through venues like this and Facebook Live and things like that. And it's just been a real grassroots campaign. And I think we're well positioned to lead us on into a better future for Meridian.
All right. Yeah. And, last year was on, we had the mayoral debate. And that was March the 10th. I so happen to remember that day because it was my birthday. But doing that live stream, after the video posted to this date, I think it had over 4,000 viewers. So I thought that was really good because March was still kind of towards the end of a little normalcy back for the citizens of Meridian.
Right.
I know now we're kind of doing what we call traditional forums and traditional debates somewhat. Where people are allowed to attend. So not quite the same as it has been, but a little bit better. So we thank God for allowing us to have some form of normalcy. But these live streams now have seemed to become popular. A lot of people are at home. They can just tune in. Even if they don't get a chance to tune in live, they can always go back and look at the video clip and so forth.
It's a great format. I find myself tuning into a lot of broadcasts the same way these days because you can play it back and watch it on your own time, and the long form conversation where we can really dive deep into the issues. So I appreciate you providing this platform.
Oh, absolutely. All right. I heard some of the questions that Mr. Williams at WTOK asked, and it was some of my similar questions. This is more of a freestyle. I didn't come with any questions prepared, but more of off the top of my brain. But guys, for those of you who are watching, if you have any questions for Mr. Lindemann, please post your questions in the comment section. And if we can, if the question is appropriate, and we'll post the question on the screen and try to let Mr. Lindemann answer the question. So if you got any questions, or if you know someone who has a question for Mr. Lindemann, don't be afraid to post in the comment section. All right, Mr. Lindemann, on last night we had mayoral candidate Mr. Robert J. Ray.
Yeah.
And Mr. Ray is he's one of a kind. He's not afraid to speak what's on his mind, regardless of if it offends you or not. So I have to give him that much respect. I mean, he'll tell you what's on his mind. But in all fairness, he put out there that you was afraid to debate him. And of course, I've asked, I reached out to him, and tried to reach out Mr. Smith, unsuccessful. But I wanted to do a mayoral debate with you three. But the other would seem it was a waste of time, especially they feel that he's not a threat. So do you want to chime in on some of the? Are you aware of some of the things he said last night?
I have no idea what he said. I could probably guess based on things that people have told me that he said elsewhere in other venues, but. As far as the debate, a while back, I challenged Jimmy Smith to a debate in a very public way. I put some advertising dollars behind it on Facebook so that thousands of people could see right in front of his campaign office. I challenged him to a debate because he's gotten by in large part by just saying things like the streets are dirty. And then meanwhile, while we're doing community cleanups, the streets in front of his campaign office are dirty, and so we've had to clean those up for him. So he's really skated on the issues so far, and so that's why I challenged him to a debate. Now, I purposely left out the other candidate, and I oftentimes only refer to having one opponent because the reality is there is only one opponent that I have in this race, and that's Jimmy Smith. The other guy I refer to as the comic relief because he's quite hilarious oftentimes to listen to. And some of the things that come out of his mouth, I can only shake my head. I mean, it's absurd. I've heard his TV ad recently, and if you haven't heard that, wow, you're in for a treat when you hear it. There's a couple of them. So
yeah, he actually read out the script last night on the program. Wow. Okay. What was coming, what was going to be airing over the next week, and he did mention that TOK was a little reluctant about airing the advertisement, but he pulled some legal rims and
I mean, that's the thing about America. The freedom of speech is only as good as your right to listen, and so it's up to the audience to decide whether or not he's worth listening to. And I personally have decided he's not, so I don't really pay him any attention, and I kind of treat it like if you hear somebody rambling about something on the street corner, do you stop and talk to him? Because I generally don't, and that's kind of that's my attitude towards Mr. Ray and his candidacy. It's just, he's holding up this book, and I'm like, I just don't have time for this. So I'd love to debate Jimmy Smith. He declined to debate. The same day I shot the video in front of his office, I actually saw him an hour later, and I said, hey, just so you know, I put this video out there. I don't want you to be blindsided, so I have challenged you publicly to a debate. And before I could even get all the words out, he said no. He was like, I'm not interested. I'm not doing it. And that was that. And I mean, I don't understand it other than he doesn't have enough to say. And so in some ways, the forum that WTOK has provided and these other opportunities we've had to speak has been sufficient because really in order to have a debate, you have to have two sides of people who are offering something to the conversation to respond to. And with my opponent, Jimmy Smith, he's not offering really much of anything that I can respond to, other than he has said that he wants to continue borrowing money to pave streets, whereas we know that that's going to be a failure like we've done for the past 30 years. Whereas I want to budget for paving streets. He's pointed out that the streets are dirty and some other things, and I've explained how we just purchased a street sweeper that's going to be here in the next year, and these things take time, and that we have 3 code enforcement officers in the entire city instead of 6, 7, or 8 that we need, so we have at least 1 per ward. These are things that he doesn't know because he hasn't been there. And so if we get into a debate, he's going to end up saying things at a real surface level, and then I'm going to be able to educate him and the public on why that is and what we need to do to fix it. So that's why he won't debate me. Now, am I scared to debate the other guy? Well, no, but I'm just focused on my opponent, and that my opponent is not Robert Ray, the way I see it.
All right. Hey, fair enough. Let me ask you this. I know you guys had to turn in your financial report, and I'm not one of those investigative reporters that try to go and pull your records and see who donated. Yep. And that's not really important to me. However, I will say this. I do know that Jimmy has raised substantially a lot of money. Oh, yeah. And so why do you think this old money is behind Jimmy Smith, who is running as a Democrat? And most of his donors are known conservatives. Any questions or any response to that?
There's a long history there. If you go back to some of the most recent things you can find in Meridian Star's archives on my opponent in the mid-2000s, he was doing favors evidently for some of the same people that are donating to his campaign now. His orbit in his campaign, the people that he is using as surrogates and apparently taking advice from, are people like Sherry Berry, who's going around falsely telling people that I've never had a job. I know I've subjugated myself to a poverty wage by being a full-time city council person for the past 4 years. But prior to that, I only had 2 years of adult life. And in that time period, I was always employed, or almost always employed. When I wasn't, I was either a full-time student or on my way to the next job. So these are the desperation tactics that the old money people, if you will, are using, because they're very afraid that for the first time in Meridian's recent modern history, past 20 or 30 years, they're about to end up in a situation where they have little to no influence at City Hall. And that's something that they're not accustomed to having. So why have they donated $67,000 to Jimmy Smith's campaign? Well, that's just what they've put on paper. I know he hasn't reported everything, but the reason being that it's a guy their agenda for their special interest. And that's a key difference between he and I. I've raised $4,200 in this race, and I've spent around $3,900 or something like that. And Jimmy Smith, on the other hand, has raised around $67,000 and has spent over $70,000. So when you look at someone's campaign, I think it tells you a lot about how they'll be when they get into office. While my campaign has been very transparent, very grassroots, and involved in engaging with the public through mediums like this, and on foot actually going door to door through neighborhoods, relying on people who give me $20 out of their paycheck to fund this campaign. His campaign, while it's relied on $15,000 checks from people like Jimmy and Ann Alexander of A&B Electric, and people who are bond attorneys and engineering firms who expect to get the city's business if he gets elected. People like Sherry Berry's former department heads who have donated money to Jimmy Smith's campaign. Rick Berry himself, who gave Jimmy Smith $500. There are a lot of contributions like that on Jimmy Smith's campaign finance report, and they expect to get something out of it, of course. But the key difference is in the way we've run our campaigns, the lack of transparency on his end, the lack of use of social media, not actually going out knocking on doors, instead paying other people to do it for him. By the way, those expenses don't appear anywhere on his campaign finance report, where he's paid people cash to go out and leave door hangers for him, as he's done all over the city. He's paying kids $50 a day to go out and leave door hangers. And there's not a single item on his campaign finance report that says that ever happened. So he's blatantly violating campaign finance laws. And if you're not reporting expenses going out, that means you're also not reporting income coming in. So what do we expect from a Jimmy Smith administration? I think the same things that we've seen in his campaign.
Okay. Thank you for that response there. I know this has been a hot topic. I asked Mr. Ray last night as well, and I've asked you previously during our two live streams that you've been on the program. Um, any changes with the decision with the chief of police, Chris Reed? And let me say why I'm asking. Let me say why I'm asking this question. I've known Mr. Reed over the years, known of Mr. I should say, his early days at Meridian PD, and even now, I really think, me personally, think that Mr. Reed is doing a wonderful job. It seems that the morale has picked up a lot over the last few years. And would you? And I know you have publicly said that he's not your choice, but would you consider? Because I mean, some people think it's kind of damning to your if you're elected, to your campaign or to your administration to openly say that you would get rid of the chief and not at least give him an opportunity. Are you willing to sit down with Chief Reed and just work out your differences that you guys may have had, and maybe give him a 6 months probation period where you will see if he's on board with you or not? Would you at least give him that opportunity?
There are a few issues here. Now, I'll say, for one thing, we will advertise for all department head positions. It's no secret I favored Rita Jack for this position. I've said that publicly. I selected her, as did a majority committee last year after Chief Dubose left office. And a lot of people thought that she was the person for the job. The mayor instead went in a different direction. The issue that I have had primarily with Chief Reed, I know he's done a good job with public relations. I know a lot of people like what he's been doing. I know it's detrimental to my campaign to say that I'm going to go in a different direction. But at the end of the day, I've got to make decisions that I think are the best for the city of Meridian, regardless of what public opinion is. And that's not to say people's input isn't important, but it's to say that even when political consequences could be dire, if there really is a clear-cut choice here, and it is a politically unsavvy position to take, I've still got to take that position based on the merits of the argument. And the key issue is, have there been administrative and personnel changes in the department that are moving the department in a positive direction, primarily getting rid of the few officers who are a serious problem, not just a liability to the department because of criminal activity, but because of the recruitment and retention efforts that we need to be making? We can't really do as long as this culture exists. So one of the things I've pointed to primarily has been dating back to last October when I went public on Facebook Live and on WTOK, and I said, we need to investigate a few things. One was something the Civil Service Commission had kind of dropped the ball on investigating. They had already launched the investigation, but they had never really concluded anything. And that was into the promotions of a few officers. Sergeant Reed at the time was one of those people who was under a civil service investigation for improperly receiving a promotion under interim chief Charles Coleman. The other thing was some criminal activity related to a detective who is involved with drug dealers. In fact, I have evidence, and I've said it on WTOK, and I'll say it here. If you doubt what I'm saying is true, and it's going to keep you from voting for me on election day, we don't have much time left, so I'm trying to prioritize the people that I meet with here. But call me, 601-692-5396, or send me a text message, and I will meet with you and show you a recorded phone call of people telling me that this officer is trying to kill me, and text message evidence that I have of criminal activity involving this detective. The same information has been accessible to the police chief. I've provided him with these text messages that show him that he has had an officer asking a drug dealer to bring him drugs to the police station while he's at the front desk. And he comes back to the city council after 3 or 4 months of dodging council meetings. And when finally asked, did he ever look into this stuff? He says, oh, it was a misunderstanding. This detective was actually undercover the whole time. I don't know how law enforcement does every aspect of their job, but I would wager that an undercover cop does not tell people that he works at a police station, and that they should come by and drop off drugs there. So this is his story that he stuck to, and I can't understand, other than perhaps Perhaps his one out would be that his boss is the current mayor, and for whatever reason, maybe the mayor wanted to protect that detective. I don't know. Now I'm speculating. But the fact of the matter is, there have been instances when I've been a council person where department heads have called me and said, hey, you need to look at this, but keep my name out of it. And I've been able to do that. So he could have done the exact same thing to me. If he was really interested in making these changes, he could have contacted me at any time and said, hey, we need to sit down and discuss this. But since my job could be on the line, we've got to be, careful about how we do this. There have been no such conversations. And if he wants to apply for the position, if there's some huge misunderstanding that I'm missing here, then, I'll give anyone a shot, I guess. But at the end of the day, we've got to go in a positive direction with this department. I am going to advertise for all department head positions. I don't expect that there's anything that the chief will be able to tell me to convince me that what I have seen over the past 10 months or so is somehow a misunderstanding. There's been ample opportunities to clear the air there, and it has not happened. So that's where we're at as far as I'm concerned. The public relations and things he's been able to do that are positive from that standpoint, there are other people who can do that and make those needed administrative changes within the department. That's really what I'm looking for. I want to increase the funding for the department, specifically in the investigations division, to allow for specialization of particular types of crimes for each detective. I want to bring back incentive pay by tying raises to performance evaluations, not just in the police department, but across all departments. And I want to incentivize officers to live inside the city of Meridian, because I believe that community policing starts with having police who live in Meridian. We can do all of these things with a chief that is also good at public relations, but has to be willing to make the personnel changes in the department that need to be made. And I don't see the current chief doing that.
All right. Well, you answered that question along with the other department's head as far as saying that, of course, you advertise all department heads positions, which is the mayor is allowed to appoint those positions. Okay. All right. Fair enough. Guys, if you do have questions, I see a lot of questions popping up on my personal Facebook page, but if you would go to Parks Investigative Live's Facebook page and post your comments there. Those are the ones that actually post up on my StreamYard. That way I can post your questions or your comments on the live stream live. If you go to my personal page, I'm not able to transfer those comments over because this live stream is linked to the Parks Investigative Live page. But of course, I am streaming it through my personal page as well. So I do see a lot of comments here on my personal page, but I'm unable to transfer them over. So just remember that if you do have a question for the councilman, please go to Parks Investigative Live and we'll try to get that question on. All right, Mr. Lindemann, you it's been a lot of chatter and a lot of talk on your end about the street paving and the borrowing the money. And, I've heard you earlier tonight when you was talking about the city has over the last, I believe you said last couple of years or the last several years have finished with a plus $4 million surplus. Am I correct on that? And
I wouldn't call it a surplus because it's actually just excess money that was budgeted. So a surplus would be if we had a $35 million budget set and then $39 million of revenue came in. But instead what's happened is they set the budget high and then they don't even spend that much. And so there's a lot of money left over at the end of the year.
All right. Well, common sense. I mean, if that is true, and I'm not saying it's not true, but if that is the case, would it be common sense to use some of that money for paving instead of borrowing? I'm just.
Yep, that was the plan I presented. So $4 million out of that excess to pave streets, and then $1.5 million coming from the new internet sales tax revenue, which can only be used on infrastructure. But since the council decided to go ahead and borrow money, they instead obligated a portion of that internet sales tax revenue to go towards debt payments. So it doesn't make sense to me. It didn't make sense to me then why they chose to do that. They haven't even issued a single paving contract since then. So that's $6 million. We have to make debt payments on it now. And they haven't even spent most of it. So it was this hurry up and borrow and now let's wait approach. That makes no sense. We could have budgeted annually instead and paid for more streets.
Seemed like a lot of towns supervisors, the city does the same thing. It's a hurry, borrow, and kind of wait around and see what's more important. All right.
Can I address that real quick? Because I think I know the reason why they do that.
Okay.
Well, one thing is it's convenient to do in election years, because if you have an excess amount that's budgeted and then you don't tell the people that you're putting it away and saving it because you have some pet project in mind down the line, that's good politics is what it is. It's clever politics. And so the bonded borrowing, when you have an electorate that doesn't pay attention, or maybe they pay attention, but they don't have the willpower to get the people in office to make this change, then what happens is you either get election year paving that looks real good, or you get a new group that comes in with borrowed funds and they pave a bunch of streets in their first year in office, and then they end up looking great. The third component here is the bond attorneys and the government consultants firm that does the financial services advising on all bond issues, which my opponent Jimmy Smith actually got a job working for government consultants when he was voted off the Board of Supervisors, because he had done such a great job pushing bond issues as president of the Board of Supervisors. The debt increased by $50 million in the 20 years that he was in office. And what did we get to show for it? Bonded borrowing should be used for major projects, things that are going to have a huge impact long term to justify the 15, 20-year debt payments, not daily expenses and operating expenses of the city like paving. That's a service that we're expected to provide. It's everyone's number 1, 2, or 3 priority. And the fact that we haven't had a budget for it, there is a direct correlation between Butler Snow as bond attorneys and government consultants as financial advisors, and the campaign contributions they give to mayors and city council members and boards of supervisors all over the state. And the reason why those two entities get no bid contracts for bond issuance across the state of Mississippi. In fact, there was an investigative article about this, I think in Mississippi Today or Northside Sun, one of those publications, a couple of years ago, that highlighted this fact, that the issue of bonded borrowing had become so prevalent across the state of Mississippi without even going through a bid process. And it goes back to the fact that these organizations, all of their people donate money to people like my opponent, who reaped the benefit of thousands of dollars in campaign contributions from both Butler Snow and government consultants. That's why I went on the radio and said he'll keep borrowing money to pave streets, because they've done that since the 1800s. That was what he said.
Wow. All right. I did have a question. I posted up earlier. I'll see if you want to address it. It says, where is the budget published for the 2020-2021 budget year?
It should be on the city's website. If it isn't, you can do a public records request to get that information. If that was any other citizen, I would probably just send it to them. But this is a person who I think is heavily involved in Robert Ray's campaign. So I think I'll just avoid sending it, the budget to them. But I don't know why they can't get that information themselves. It's easily accessible.
Okay. Emily says, and Jimmy already said he plans to borrow more. And I know you touched on that. So educate me on that, because he's publicly said he wants to borrow more money too.
He did on WMOX, I believe, last Friday. He wasn't on air. You know, every other candidate appeared in person in the studio, and then they do a Facebook Live interview. But he called in and talked for about 15 minutes about, not a whole lot of substance. But one of the things that they asked him directly was, the question was phrased in the context of, there have been a lot of people saying we should budget for paving, and why isn't there any money in the budget for paving? Would you budget for paving? And he said that they've been borrowing money. Bonded borrowing has been the way to pave streets dating back to the 1800s. And he said he intends to keep doing that because he doesn't know any other way to do it. And by his record on the Board of Supervisors, I'd say he's telling the truth. He doesn't know any other way to do it. Look at the way he's run his campaign. He spent more money than he received. He doesn't even put on his finance report all of the money he received or all of the money he spent. Are we going to really let this person have control of a $35, $36, $37 million general fund budget, not to even mention all the other funds that we have in the city of Meridian? I just don't understand how we can be so reckless. I hope that answered the question.
Yeah, it did. It did. It was a little delay. It was a pause. I didn't know if it was on my end or your end, but no, you answered the questions. Thank you so much for that. All right, guys, if you're just now joining, you're watching Parks Investigative Live. I'm your host, Investigative Parks. We have special guests, current Ward 5 Councilman Weston Lindemann, and also Meridian's mayoral candidate, which is the important election is coming up on next Tuesday, and I'll go ahead and post it up there. June the 8th, polls open from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. I don't want to put no misinformation out there, so make sure that date is correct. That's next Tuesday, or the
That's right.
I should say, June the 8th. And I think early voting is still going on up until Saturday at 12 noon. Am I correct? Or
correct? Yes, at City Hall. You can cast an absentee vote if you're unavailable to vote on election day. And this time Tuesday, we should know who the winner is.
That's right. That's right. All right, guys. Again, if you got questions for Winston, please do so. Or real quickly, we don't want to keep him on too long. He did a little over an hour live stream with TOK, and he vowed to come on tonight to Parks Investigative Live. We really appreciate you, sir. But I know it can be tiring. I can see it in your eyes. So we're not going to keep
signed up for.
That's right. That's right. All right. Any final thoughts before we get out of here that you want the viewers, even the undecided voters, for those, because people are going to be watching this live stream after it posts, and there's still some undecided voters or some people who may be a little skeptical, think you're too young. I've heard that, and which I don't think age has an issue, because as it was mentioned on 102.1 The Eagle, when the Emancipation Proclamation was signed, it was, I think the majority of them was under the age of 30. So I thought that was a very relevant reference. Yeah. So I don't think age should really disqualify you if you met the qualifications. So with that being said,
I wouldn't hold my age, or I wouldn't hold the age of my opponent against him. So I don't understand why that's a consideration. The substance of what's being said by the candidates is, to me, what's most important. If you watch the WTOK forum, you can find that on YouTube now. If you listen to any of the Q&As I've done, if you go to my website, westonformayor.com, read my platform there, go to my Facebook page and watch some of the videos I've published on my plans for the city, then try to go and find the same information on my opponent. And what you won't find is any details anywhere. He's not out campaigning. He's not on Facebook. He's not, saying anything on a website or elsewhere. It's a stark contrast between a plan to move the city forward and someone who was brought in to replace the current administration, but more or less keep the status quo by allowing the former mayor, Sherry Berry, and her entourage of people access back into City Hall. That's why they've donated tens of thousands of dollars to make him a successful candidate. But outside of being on a billboard, I don't see him anywhere. Is that what you want in a mayor? That's what I would say to someone leaning towards Jimmy Smith. I don't know how to be any more harsh than that. You've got a record there. If you go on Meridian Star and type in the search bar my opponent's name and do the date range from about 2000 to 2005 or 6, you can read exactly why people voted him out of office last time. If in 2013 you were frustrated with Sherry Berry's administration and you voted for Percy Bland because you wanted change, then why would you vote for Jimmy Smith? Because it's the same people behind his campaign. If you voted in 2013 for Percy Bland, but in 2017 you wanted change, well, some of those same people like Bunky Partridge and others are behind Jimmy Smith's campaign today. We always say we want change in the city, but continually we've elected people that are always backed by more or less the same group. My campaign is backed by grassroots people. That's why we've only raised $4,200. That's why we've had to knock on over 2,000 doors. That's why people take $20 out of their paycheck and give it to our campaign, because they believe in what we're trying to accomplish. And that's why we're going to have a successful future for the city if we go in this direction on June 8th. So I'm asking for your vote. If you're still undecided, if you want to ask me more questions, you can reach out to me on Facebook Messenger. You can call me or text me, 601-692-5396. I've been that transparent as a council person. I've been that transparent as a candidate, and I'll continue to be that transparent as mayor.
All right. I did have a question that come through my phone, apparently from a live viewer who can't. I think they're watching from YouTube, so it won't show me the YouTube comments, but I'll go ahead and read it out. And this is kind of piggyback, I think, off of the criminal activity that took Police Department. It says that if there was criminal activity going on, why didn't the NBI or the Attorney General's office investigate when you called them? Can you respond to that?
So I'll talk about what happened there, and then if you don't believe me, you can call me and I'll show you these text messages that I have at the AG's office. What I don't have recorded is my first phone call to NBI, in which an individual named Gypsy Ward answered and said, when I said I was from Meridian, they laughed and said they wanted nothing to do with the city of Meridian, and then they transferred me. The AG's office, they were working from home at the time. They were working remotely. And this investigator that I was dealing with could not even open email attachments. I have those text messages and emails saved where they're going back and forth with very little interest in what I'm trying to tell them, saying things like, I can't get it to open. Can you send it another way? And keep in mind, this is in the days after, this is in the weekend after the Thursday night where I received death threats on a phone call that is recorded of people telling me that there are police officers who want to kill me because I was just on WTOK that night saying I wanted to investigate them for their criminal activity. So I didn't get any help from NBI. They laughed and said they wanted nothing to do with the city of Meridian. The AG's office was completely inept, could not even open email attachments to look at the evidence I was trying to send them. They had no initiative to follow up. There was a contact at Meridian Police Department that I had that was trying to facilitate conversation with these investigators at the AG's office or at NBI, but they themselves never got anywhere in that process because the system is not designed, apparently, to really go after police officers who are involved in this sort of thing. For whatever reason, everybody dropped the ball. So Monday morning, after this whole weekend of me trying to figure out what to do and compile enough evidence, I go down to City Hall at 8 a.m. and meet with Eddie Kelly, the city CAO, and I told him point blank, you've got to do something here, or I'm going to have to get in front of the cameras and let everyone know what's happening. Well, by 12 noon that day, I would call his phone and it would go straight to voicemail. And he had not followed up on any of the things he said he was going to do when we met that morning. So I went public, and you know what? The problem pretty much got resolved, because when you tell the world that a specific person is trying to do something like that, now all of a sudden they can't do anything to you because clearly it would look like they did it. But if anyone doubts the narrative that I've put forth, I've documented all this stuff. I'll show you if it convinces you to vote for me, but I'm not going to waste my time if you're an antagonist from my opponent's campaign or someone who just is going to play skeptic all day. If you're not going to vote for me and you don't believe me, well, then I'm not trying to convince you. But if you don't want to vote for me because you don't believe me, I'll meet with you and show you.
I'm just curious. You mentioned that when you spoke with someone at the NBI, they said in your comment was that they said that they didn't want anything to do with Meridian. Can you elaborate why that was said, or is it any reason behind that?
I don't know. I know from following the Culpable podcast that this individual's name came up a lot. So maybe when I mentioned Meridian, they didn't want anything to do with Meridian because last time they were involved here, their name got dragged through the mud. That's my best guess. I don't know why they would have said that, but they transferred my call, and it was very frustrating, this process, because this was at a point where, I'm really looking for someone to help me out here. My neighbor is telling me that some people came by asking about me. I've got, these phone calls late at night from people cautioning me that Officer Howard Cole really had it out for me. So, you have to take these things seriously in the moment, and whether or not he was ever going to follow through, who knows? But I'm just glad I did what I did because I felt like I had to, and there was no political consideration involved, because if anything, that probably did damage to my political reputation, because the media coverage of that whole incident sensationalized it. I remember the next council meeting, I was there at the very next council meeting a few days after this whole thing happened, and WTOK's headline was, Lindemann returns to first city council meeting since claiming that there were death threats or something like that. And I'm like, well, returns to first city. Like, the way they framed it was like I had missed council meetings, like I'd been in hiding, but I didn't even miss a single council meeting. So, that's the way that goes. And it's, it's hard dealing with the, public spin that gets put on things sometimes, but I've just tried to be as truthful and transparent as I can be at all times, and short of exposing sources who've given me this information on this officer in a very public way. I can, sorry, I was getting text messages in here that are throwing me off. Short of publishing this information in public and putting people in danger, I have nothing else I can do but meet with individuals who doubt this close before the election. So the good news is, stepping now from an oversight role into an executive one, I'll be able to eliminate the personnel who are part of the problem, because there are multiple officers named in these text messages. So the day is coming where justice of a sort could be resolved. It could be finally brought. So that's what I expect will happen. I'm glad we got to go a little bit more in depth on this, because it's not the type of thing that you can talk about in a soundbite. It's not the type of thing that you can plan for, how to deal with a situation like this. But when I provide all the evidence to a chief of police and he fails to follow up on it, that's a deal breaker for me.
All right. Well, Weston Lindemann, we certainly appreciate you coming on to Parks Investigative Live again. You had a very busy schedule later this evening, and you spent a little over an hour, or maybe an hour, close to an hour and a half on WTOK's live stream. And I saw a lot of viewers there. So we certainly appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule, a little less than a week before the election, to come on here. And I know you got a lot of work to do up until Tuesday. And if it's meant to be, if the Lord see fit, and if it's your time, you'll be the next mayor. If not, I do want to ask this: if some reason, if it's not meant to be, or the time is not now, do you plan to stay in politics locally, or do you plan to go outside of the local arena?
I'll find a way to contribute. I don't know what that'll be, but I expect to be the next mayor of the city.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. Hey, that's right. Stay positive and go ahead and speak it into existence. All right, guys. Weston Lindemann, he's the Meridian mayoral candidate. He's one of 3 candidates that's vowing for the job. And next week, this time, we would know who the winner is. Of course, it'll be next Wednesday, but hopefully Tuesday night, a little bit before 9 o'clock, they should deem a winner, unless it's too close to call and some type of special recount needs to be done on the next day. But
if the roller coaster guy gets a couple percentage points somehow, then who knows? There could be a runoff.
Okay. All right, guys. Winston, again, thank you so much taking time out of your busy schedule. Thank you for not shying away from these interviews. And I appreciate it. And even the guy you referred to as the roller coaster guy, Mr. Ray, he also accepted the invitation. He do come on as well.
At least he'll do that.
Yeah, but like I said, I reached out to Jimmy Smith and unsuccessful. I won't even take my call anymore. So I just want to give everybody a fair opportunity to come on and just tell the voters why they should vote for them. Yeah. So with that being said, Mr. Lindemann, thank you so much again.
Thank you.
And we'll be watching next Tuesday, especially the citizens of Meridian. Of course, I don't have a dog in the fight. I live in the county, but I'll definitely be tuning in to see who's ready to lead the city of Meridian the next 4 years. So good to have you on again. And one final comment. Okay, never mind. One of your supporters says the whole state needs change, and basically coming off something you said, not surprising. All right, Mr. Lindemann, I'm going to let you go now. We've been on about 45 minutes, so I think you got your word out. So
I think so. Yeah.
All right, man.
Thanks
good to have you on again.
Mm-hmm.
All right, guys, thank you for tuning in to Parks Investigative Live. Once I sign off, you can share this live screen, and it's once I sign off, it should become available instantly. And someone who was unable to watch this live stream tonight due to church or any other work or any other obligation, you can inbox it or send it to their direct message, and they can still pull up this live stream and watch it. And as always, as I say, until we speak, enjoy life and living, and thank you so much for tuning in tonight. I leave you with this.